Hello everyone, the chapter begins by introducing us to Marian, a girl excited about her parents' return home. Her joy increases when she sees her mother carrying her younger brother, Sean, in her arms. Filled with affection, Marianne kisses him on the cheek and tells him she is his older sister. The story fast-forwards 3 years, showing the siblings playing in the yard. Marianne runs to greet her father when he arrives, and Sean greets him with a maturity that surprises his sister. Marianne reflects on how Sean has always been very mature, helping their mother and displaying a seriousness uncommon for his age. However, she also remembers moments when Sean plays hide and seek and imagines using magic, something she finds adorable. During dinner, Sean asks his father if monsters exist. His father responds affirmatively, explaining that this is why they cannot leave the property as monsters attack people and pose a danger. Sean also asks about spirits, fairies, and magic, but his father says that while he has heard of fairies, he has never heard anything about magic. Shan looks disappointed, and from that day on, he stops talking about the topic. Marian notices that her brother has become more reserved and immerses himself in books. 3 years later, Marian trains hard physically, explaining to Shan that she does it to protect him in case a monster appears. Shan is surprised by his sister's dedication, as she admits she is not very good at studying, but excels at exercise. Meanwhile, Sean remains obsessed with the idea of finding magic, though he does not express it openly. Marianne, however, is sure that her brother studies so much because he seeks to discover the magic that fascinates him so much. One day, Marianne takes Sean to a nearby lake where mysterious particles of light have appeared. Sean is nervous about leaving the house, but Marianne insists it will be worth it. When they arrive at the lake, the glowing particles begin to emerge, and Marianne explains to Shan that only certain people can see them, and each person perceives them differently. Shan is excited to see that his sister still remembers his interest in magic and apologizes for worrying her. Marianne replies that there is no need to worry and hopes he feels more encouraged now. The next day, while having lunch, their parents are surprised to see Sean so cheerful. After eating, the siblings return to the lake, where Marianne scolds Sean for his lack of physical fitness. Sean acknowledges that he needs to exercise more, but is determined to investigate the origin of the light particles. Together they fill 3 buckets with stones, air, and seaweed, and finally capture a fish. Rose, a friend of Marian, appears, and is surprised to see that Sean can also see the particles. Shan, in turn, is surprised to discover that Rose has been observing the phenomenon. At nightfall, the particles reappear, but the buckets do not glow. Shan deduces that the particles are part of the trout's mating ritual and decides to venture further into the lake to investigate. Marian, worried about her brother, accompanies him. As they explore, Sean touches one of the spheres and feels a warm, pleasant sensation, though he cannot see anything underwater due to the darkness. He suspects the particles are released by some marine creature. After leaving the lake, Sean thanks Marian for her support. Rose, excited, captures a female trout and places it in the bucket with a male, causing more particles to appear. Sean concludes that the particles are part of the trout's mating ritual. Curious, Marian asks what a mating ritual is, and Rose explains that it is when 2 beings come together to form a family. Marian comments that she and Sean do not need that because they are already family, but Sean explains that they cannot marry because they are siblings. The next day, Marian tells Sean that their mother got angry when she mentioned wanting to marry him. Sean explains that even though he loves her, they do not need to marry to be together. Marian insists that marriage is something special, but Sean promises that he will not marry anyone and will always be by her side. As they hug, Sean begins to glow strangely, making him think he has absorbed magical energy from the trout's mating ritual. Embarrassed, Marian flees the room while Sean reflects on the possibility that magic exists and that he might be the one to discover and create it in his world. With Sean excited by the idea that his story is just beginning and that he will be the one to bring magic to a reborn world. In a scene change, we meet the antagonist, a 30-year-old man who, unfortunately, is still a virgin. Despite his situation, he is excited because he has come to believe the popular notion that turning 30 as a virgin will make him a powerful wizard. However, his enthusiasm is cut short when he tries to cast a fireball and fails. Frustrated, he turns to his extensive collection of magic books, attempting to cast all sorts of spells, but none work. Desperate, he pulls out a notebook, pretends it is a grimoire, and performs a supposed summoning, which, as expected, has no effect. Resigned and depressed, he concludes that magic does not exist in his world. That night, as he tries to sleep to face another day of work, he suffers a cardiac arrest and dies. In the limbo between life and death, he reflects on how the world is full of information and that if you need something, you just have to look for it. In his previous life, his heart only filled with excitement when thinking about unknown things like magic, though deep down, he always suspected the idea of becoming a wizard at 30 as a virgin was a hoax. Now, reincarnated in a new world, he discovers that once again, magic seems non-existent. Despite his research, he finds no trace of it, bringing him to the brink of losing his new reason for living. However, something changes. Back in the present, the protagonist, now named San, tries again to cast a fireball, but as before, nothing happens. Despite this, he decides not to give up and starts with the basics. Though he is unsure if magic exists, he finds something resembling it. At that moment, his younger sister, Marian, enters his room without knocking, which annoys San. Marian asks if he was doing something inappropriate, and San, though he thinks she does not know, believes the time will come when she will. He asks his sister to sit beside him and suddenly confesses that he loves her. Marian feels embarrassed, but at that moment, a magical aura begins to emanate from San's body. San realizes that confessing his feelings releases his magical power, but wonders if he will have to confess every time he wants to activate it. As he reflects, Marian asks if he is playing with her, to which San seriously replies that he is not. Marian blushes again, and San thinks she is very easy to convince. His sister asks if he has discovered anything else about his powers, and San explains that for now, he can only activate them by confessing, but believes it is not limited to that. He decides to try something new, and Marian becomes nervous, thinking he will confess again. However, San tells her to calm down, as he is not old enough to have those hormones raging. San deduces that confessing his feelings causes an intense emotion, allowing him to activate his aura. He tests other emotions like amusement, anticipation, enthusiasm, and joy, and manages to activate his aura again, though it only glows faintly. San realizes this phenomenon defies all logic and proves that magic exists. He explains that it is similar to what electric eels do, as they can generate electricity through a special organ. San supposes that people's bodies in this world might have something similar that allows them to perceive and generate magical power. He decides to call this state the magical charge state. Over time, San learns to control this state, discovering that he needs intense emotion to activate it, but maintaining that emotion is difficult, and he can only stay in that state for a limited time. Additionally, he finds that only people with magical aptitude can see his aura. However, he feels frustrated because he cannot cast light orbs, leading him to think his magical power is limited. Despite this, he does not give up and continues practicing. During a training session with his father, San and his sister Rose learn fencing. Though San is not interested in fighting, his father reminds him that the sword is not only used against people, but also against monsters. While Rose shows great talent for fencing, San decides to keep practicing his magic. Later, his father takes him to the city, where San gets excited exploring new places. At the blacksmith Grat gives Marian a sword, making San feel a bit left out, but his sister worries about him. San tells her not to worry, as it is her birthday. At the end of the day, San notices a shop where a boy has a small creature caged. When he asks his father about the place, his father responds sternly that he does not need to know. San apologizes, but cannot help noticing that the shop's sign says, "Fairy Sale," which piques his curiosity, and makes him think there might be more magic in this world than he believed. Sometime later, on a stormy afternoon, a villager tries to bring firewood to his village when he encounters someone running desperately. This person, stumbling, stammers that everyone has been killed and that goblins are approaching. Meanwhile, Sean, a young man interested in magic, practices his skills, managing to keep light in his hand for 10 seconds, though he is not completely satisfied, as he can only generate magic that glows and produces heat. He has grown accustomed to it. His sister, Marianne, tells him she likes his magic, but Sean begins to ramble about fairies and monsters in their world. Here, fairies are considered animals, and some people even hunt them to sell them. Sean understands why his father dislikes the idea of hunting humanoid beings, but his thoughts are interrupted by Marianne, who asks him to pay attention. At that moment, they hear a noise, and when they go to investigate, their father informs them that goblins have appeared. Sean is excited to hear this, but his father warns that they must eliminate them quickly, as leaving them free would be very dangerous. Sean, however, thinks that investigating the goblins could help him learn more about magic. Meanwhile, he notices the tension among the villagers and wonders why they are so afraid, as goblins are considered the weakest enemies. His father decides to take the women, elderly, and children of the village to their house to keep them safe, while the men prepare for the hunt. Marianne takes Sean's hand and tells him not to worry, as their father will handle everything, and she will protect him too. The women and children inside are terrified, but the banging suddenly stops, only to be replaced by the sound of a window breaking. The goblin enters the house and goes upstairs. Shan asks everyone to stay quiet, but a thunderclap scares the girls, causing them to make noise and alert the goblin. The goblin breaks the bedroom door and enters, mocking Shan's mother, who steps forward to protect her children. Maria tries to defend them with a sword, but the goblin easily disarms her. Just as the goblin is about to attack, Shan lunges at it. He discovers that he is surrounded by magical energy and decides to use the mana accumulation on the goblin, grabbing its arm and gathering a large amount of energy. Though those not attuned to magic cannot see what is happening, Marianne and Rose notice it. The goblin, initially confident, begins to feel burns, and Shan pushes it against the wall without hesitation. Shan strikes the goblin again, accumulating magic in its head and managing to defeat it by burning its skull. However, Shan is left trembling, while the others look at him with terror, wondering why they see him as a monster. Rose takes his hand and thanks him for saving them, but Shan's mother is seriously injured. The storm worsens, and Shan realizes he must stop his mother's bleeding. He asks the villagers for help to take her to bed and inquires if anyone knows medicine. With no one knowledgeable about medicine present, Shan remembers how wounds were treated in his past life and asks for a seamstress. Leah, a villager, offers to help. Shan tears his mother's dress and sees that the wound is not too deep, but fears the goblin's claws might have been poisoned. He asks Leah to suture the wound, but she initially refuses, afraid of hurting the lady. Shan explains that if she does not do it, his mother could die, and Leah finally agrees. After a rigorous procedure, they manage to stabilize Shan's mother. Marianne hugs her, crying, and at that moment, the village men return. They discover that Guan and the others had found the goblin's den, but, seeing more tracks, decided to return quickly. Fortunately, no one died in the fight. The next day, a doctor arrives to treat Shan's mother and comments that the wound was very well stitched, asking if there was someone in the village who knew about medicine. Guan, somewhat nervous, replies that there was. Later, Marianne apologizes to her mother for not being able to protect them, but her mother tells her she was very brave and should be proud of herself. Guan then talks to Shan, asking how he knew what to do to treat his mother and how he defeated the goblin. Shan, nervous, does not know how to respond, but his father asks if he used magic. Shan is surprised to hear this, and his father says that he has always been a very rational boy, but that there is something about him that makes him different. Though he does not know if he believes in magic, he wants to believe in his children. Marianne comments that Shan has worked hard researching magic, but this causes their father to become upset. warning him not to reveal anything about his abilities, as they could be persecuted. Determined, Shan tells his father that he will continue researching magic, as it is his dream and he cannot give up on it. Though worried, his father finally accepts, promising to support him as long as it does not become too dangerous. Shan feels relieved and grateful, knowing his father backs him in his quest for magical knowledge. Sometime later, Shan is in the yard of his house experimenting with his magical energy, with his father, Guan, watching closely. The young mage tries to channel his magic into a lit bonfire. The result is unexpected. Upon contact, the red flames turn blue and spread violently, burning Shan's hand in the process. Guan reacts quickly, throwing a bucket of water to extinguish the uncontrolled flames. Though he cannot see the magical energy like his son, this demonstration is enough to convince him definitively of Shan's special abilities. Marian watches the scene from a distance, feeling a sharp jealousy at the bond forming between her father and younger brother. Shan's mind is already soaring toward new magical horizons, imagining himself casting impressive fireballs like a true sorcerer, with such an enthusiastic expression that it makes his worried father raise his eyebrows. The following days are marked by intense experimentation sessions. Shan tries repeatedly, accumulating failures and minor burns, but also making crucial discoveries. He establishes 3 fundamental principles. First, the intensity of the flames increases proportionally to the amount of magical energy accumulated. Second, not only fire reacts to his magic, but any significant heat source. And third, his energy behaves like a highly flammable substance, capable of spreading flames even through intervening objects. A significant breakthrough occurs when Marian and Rose, almost effortlessly, create light orbs with their own magic. Shan, initially frustrated by his inability to replicate the effect, receives key advice from Rose. Imagine you're pulling the energy, not expelling it. Over the following weeks, Shan notices a concerning problem. The more he refines his control over magical energy, the less potency he seems to generate. This contradiction leads him to consider the need for new approaches in his training. It is during this period of reflection that he begins to observe Marian's strange behavior. She trains with an almost obsessive intensity, to the point of injuring her hands without showing any intention of stopping. Worried, Shan finally confronts her firmly, convincing her to take a much-needed rest. Shan's intellectual curiosity knows no bounds. His next goal is to understand and eventually master lightning magic. Discussions with his father lead to the discovery of a lightning mineral in the possession of the blacksmith, Grot. However, transporting it poses serious challenges due to its danger. The solution comes in the form of another material, mica or paper crystal, which Shan identifies as a possible insulator. Though the price is exorbitant, 4,000 GS, enough to feed a family at a nice restaurant. Guan, showing an unexpectedly generous side, agrees to buy it to support his son's research. The experiment with the lightning mineral is revealing. Upon contact with Shan's magical energy, the rock releases spectacular red lightning bolts. Though they disappear almost instantly, they demonstrate a fundamental principle. Magical energy is not only flammable, but can also emulate various natural phenomena. With a laugh bordering on manic, Shan realizes the possibilities are far broader than he initially imagined. The challenge now is to transform these fleeting flashes into a controllable electric current. While seeking to share these discoveries, Shan finds Marianne in an unexpected place, the lakeshore, hitting a log with such force that her hands bleed. The scene reminds him of Rose's earlier words about supporting her sister. In a moment of deep emotional connection, Marianne breaks down in tears, confessing her frustration at not being able to protect her younger brother when the goblin attacked, and her envy of the strength he demonstrated. Moved, Shan hugs her and promises his unconditional support, marking the beginning of a new stage in their relationship. After an incident where Shan's younger sister becomes overly clingy, he asks for space to continue his magical experiments. Although she feels hurt and asks if she's a bother, Shan tries to tell her subtly to avoid hurting her. With his space regained, he resumes his research, discovering that he can shape his magic at will. However, he notices that when he expands it, it loses potency, while compressing it increases its strength. This advancement doesn't apply equally to his electricity magic, but in one of his experiments, while attempting to manipulate the lightning mineral, the energy is drawn into his body, which surprises the girls. Sean continues progressing rapidly, even coming to believe that this world expects him to create magic. At that moment, his father and Grax appear, and upon entering the house, his father reminds him that thanks to his idea, they were able to extract the lightning mineral. However, Grax, taking advantage of the knowledge, began extracting and selling the mineral in his shop, accumulating a large amount without being able to get rid of it. Grax apologizes for using Sean's idea to enrich himself, but Sean doesn't blame him, accepting it as a logical possibility. The main problem is that the accumulated lightning mineral in Grax's warehouse generates an annoying crackling, and if they don't solve it in 3 days, he'll lose the place. Sean agrees to help, though without promising results. Upon examining the stones, he notices that when brought together, they release energy rays. Later, in the shop, Grax shows him the refined metal from the mineral, but it no longer produces electricity. With his father's permission, Sean performs a magical demonstration, lighting an oven with magical fire, which leaves Grax stunned. After explaining magic to him, Grax asks if refining the mineral with that special fire could restore its electrical properties, though he isn't sure. They decide to try it. After the smelting process, the new metals do generate sparks when brought close, leading Sean to name it lightning steel. Working tirelessly, they create 2 innovative products: the lightning flint, which instantly lights campfires, and the lightning lamp, which illuminates without the need for lanterns. His parents and sister are proud, but Grax, in a moment of emotion, mentions that Sean is someone special, creating an awkward silence. His mother interrupts, suggesting they go out for seafood. Later, Grax bids farewell, thanking Sean, who reveals that during the process, he had an idea that will change his magic. Meanwhile, Sean continues his experiments, discovering that magical fire doesn't extinguish without oxygen, leading him to think that magic acts as fuel. When he collides a fireball with his sister's attack, it explodes, surprising everyone. Rose questions if he expected that reaction, and Sean deduces that magic interacts with other elements similarly to gunpowder. Rushing to the lightning mineral, he throws a magical current and observes that the air reacts with the energy, concluding that magic amplifies the properties of other elements. Excited, he names this phenomenon composite magic. Later, Grax gives him gauntlets made of insulating paper crystals and fire-resistant leather. Testing them, Sean puts on an impressive magical display, including launching a lightning bolt, finally fulfilling his dream of mastering magic. His sister praises him, and he cries with emotion. However, that night, while getting up for water, Sean overhears a conversation between his father and Grax, where the latter mentions that his magic is an unparalleled feat and shouldn't be kept secret. His mother recalls that Sean is still a child and might unintentionally reveal his abilities. His father comments that sometimes he can't help but think how special he is, as he's the little one that person entrusted them to care for. Hearing this, Sean is shocked, realizing they aren't blood-related, thus ending the chapter that day. Sean continues practicing his magic, showing significant improvement. Mary and Rose congratulate him, but his mind drifts as he recalls the conversation he overheard among the adults, where he discovered they are not blood siblings. This thought leads him to imagine inappropriate scenarios with his non-sister, horrifying him. To avoid dwelling on this, he immerses himself in his experiments with compound magic. He discovers that by combining 2 spheres of magical energy, he can increase their density and power, creating what he calls synergistic magic. This enhances his existing techniques like Fleur and BK, expanding his repertoire. However, when he tries to mix Fleur with BK, Nothing happens, prompting him to test another element. Water. He heads to a lake to experiment, but the water doesn't react as expected. Remembering that he once made magical energy interact with air, he tries a similar approach, yet only manages to make a few droplets rise. The girls are excited to see him manipulate water, though he finds the result useless. Leaving the lake, he attempts another technique, gathering moisture from the air into his hand, but it only feels damp. He realizes the problem is the range of his energy. On his second try, he expands his magic over a wider area, collecting dispersed water particles in the air and forming a liquid bubble. The girls are impressed, thinking he conjured water from nothing. Sean explains that he thinly dispersed his energy to gather moisture from a large area, a more efficient method than manipulating water directly. Excited, Mary asks what he'll name this new magic. After thinking, Sean dubs it Aqua. The girls replicate the effect on their first try, while he reflects on the future of his research. Later, the group plans a monster hunting excursion with Grax's help. Before leaving, Grax reminds them they must register at the Adventurers Guild. Though hesitant, the girls are determined, and Sean asks Grax not to tell his father. At the guild, Grax registers them as his recruits, revealing he's a platinum-ranked adventurer. The receptionist asks if there are more recommendations, and to everyone's shock, Gain appears, displaying his diamond rank insignia. The group is stunned. They've never seen an adventurer of such high rank. Gain tells them they'll complete a mission first, then talk. Outside, the kids apologize, but Gain admits he already suspected their plans. Mary is bad at hiding things. He scolds them for not telling him, but appreciates that they at least sought supervision from a strong adult like Grax. He agrees to accompany them, ensuring their safety. In a kobold den, Gain effortlessly defeats the monsters, showcasing his strength. Sean is impressed, but realizes these weakened kobolds aren't a good challenge for testing his magic. Gain warns that wilder kobolds will soon arrive, and sure enough, more aggressive ones appear. Mary and Rose take the lead while Sean stays back, launching a fleur combined with another energy, creating a bomb fleur that explodes against the enemies. Mary shields Sean from a surprise attack, and Rose demonstrates her combat skills. Working as a team, they defeat the kobolds, boosting Mary's confidence. Gain congratulates them on their first hunt and takes them to another den for more experience. After clearing several dens, the kids are exhausted. Grax points out their lack of stamina, but praises their improved fighting skills. Gain tells them to collect the loot and rest. During the break, Sean notices something strange in a cave and investigates. Inside, they find a caged Ida. They free her, and she watches them gratefully before disappearing. That night, returning home, Gain knows his wife Emma will scold him for letting the kids come back injured. True enough, she hits him with a candelabra while the kids panic. However, she explains she's not angry about the hunt itself, but because their father, in his obsession with training them, didn't assess the risks. She tells them they can continue their adventures, but must be careful, as their happiness depends on them staying alive. After an emotional hug, Emma sends them to bathe before dinner. Sean feels awkward being washed by his mother, feeling like he's in heaven and hell at the same time. Yet, remembering all the support his family has given him, he reflects on how happy he is with them, despite the secrets and complications. Thus ends the chapter.